going back to you and your political career definitely did not end you. For the 2 years that you were not there, what were you doing?
Well, for the 2 years I weren't there, Mr. Clark, I took much needed time with my daughter.
Mm.
If anybody knows me, knows that I love my daughter so much. I remember in 2010 when I ran, my daughter was 6 years old, and she was on the campaign trail with me too. And being in office takes a lot of your family.
Yeah.
I missed certain birthdays. I missed certain times when it was bring your dad to school. My daughter doesn't live here; she lives in the U.S. I missed certain times when I couldn't come up in time for Christmas. I came the day or 2 days after because we had a budget debate that you
Mm.
didn't know when it was going to finish, and so it's difficult for you to choose your to book your ticket. And so she is 12 years old now. Um, she was 10 when I came out, and I decided that it was time for me to give her the attention that she needed. And so that's what I did. I took time with my daughter, my beautiful daughter, who's 12 now. I took a lot of time and do some reading. I people ask me on the road, they say, "But Laville, I haven't seen you. I'm not hearing nothing from you." I said, I had my time in Parliament. It would be unfair to me that having a new set of members in Parliament and all of a sudden I look for fault, I look for issue, I look for problems, I come out in the papers and I see what they should do or what they shouldn't do. I think that's unfair because being new to myself, I had to remember that I needed time too as well.
But in talking to you during that time, two things. One is you were very instrumental with when Dominica had their
Yes.
problem. You organized some support for Dominica, and a lot of the people here who have families and friends in Dominica were very grateful for the effort that you make, and it was very successful. I know even the Prime Minister of Dominica mentioned your name in recognizing those who have helped. So that was one. Secondly, I remember having a little conversation with you where I asked you, what are you hearing from the people? What are the complaints? What are people suffering from? And you, as now not being an MP, now you're hearing these complaints. If you get back in, what would be your main focus after hearing all what the people have been complaining about?
Well, first and foremost, with the situation happening in Dominica, for those who don't know, I have Dominican background. I was actually born in the Commonwealth of Dominica. My mom was pregnant with me in St. Martin. And the laws at the time still is today that you have to go back in your country to have your child and then come back. And so that is what my mom did. Um, it was something that was spearheaded by a couple of people. One of them, a lady on the French side, Maria Joseph,
Mm.
and Pastor Salt. He
Yeah.
was one of those that called a meeting for all Dominicans to come together by Miss Rosemary on the waterfront. And I happened to be there. It was something that affected not only people that I knew down there, but family members too as well. And my contribution at that evening was just to put a 40-foot container, and it just so happened that I got more involved than I wanted to get involved, and I did my part. I did my part in the background. One thing with me, Mr. Gibbs, I have no hidden agenda for what I do. What you see is what you get. If you don't like it, then I'm sorry for you. I don't have brothers and sisters, so I'm happy being alone. I have no problem being by myself. But I try to be in the background and not be up in front because I didn't want people to have any idea of, I'm doing this for politics and so forth. So that is why when people would come and take pictures, I would move. When they do catch me, get me with a video, I would always mention other people and not myself, because at that time, you can't play politics with
Yeah.
hurting people, and so I have to commend all of those who were there at that time. Where that is concerned, we we went down with our vehicles, and I have to thank I forgot her name, but she's part of the head of the Dominican Consulate. that got us a Venezuela boat that we could have put our vehicles there and go down and assist. I happened to put my truck, paid it out of my own pocket to go down last year, and I was in Dominica for a whole month with my vehicle assisting the different villages with water, with food, and so forth, just trying to do my part too as well. And so, we all did our part. I forget the last question that you gave.
Yeah, you heard the complaints of the
Yes,
people,
yes.
and based on what you are hearing, what would you say would be your priority should you be elected into parliament again?
I had a conversation with some beautiful ladies yesterday that works at a jewelry store. I'm
You
not going
always
to
talk to beautiful ladies.
Well, everyone is beautiful to me.
Yeah, okay.
So God made all of us in His own image and His own liking. So, and I had a chance to talk to them, and one of the ladies told me, she said, "Mr. Laville, I have 3 children, and it's very difficult for me working, and collecting the salary that I have, and high school is so expensive, $700 for one child." And we started discussing. I got goosebumps, I almost saw a tear. You could feel the pain in her, and we were discussing cost of living. That is something we've talked about for a very long time, and that is something that I intend to tackle when I get in. People who know me know that I am somebody that whatever I promise, I deliver. I promised on the campaign trail to make sure that our young men in the districts, now more than ever, are given opportunity. We're now seeing with the expanding of the garbage contract and the road cleaning and so forth, we're now seeing more young men. When I promised to stand by the Pelican workers and find a solution, I brought the legislation. When I promised the issue with our pension and our folks, I brought that. When I promised the issue concerning um, the amount of money that our parents are paying, the high cost of living, especially for education, I brought the motion for that. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I am somebody, I stand by what I say. And so I looked at her in the eyes and I said to her, I said, you know what? That is the first thing that I'm going to tackle when I get into cost of living. This is something that we seriously need to adjust. It cannot be, Mr. Clark, that we live on a tourist island, that we have an average cruise expenditure. In 2015, FCCA came out with a report that St. Martin was #1. We have $187 or $97 and 20 something cents of an average cruise expenditure on St. Martin. We have over 1.8 million passengers that come to this island. We have over $400 million that is flowing through this country a year, but no one is seeing where that money is going. There has to be a redistribution of the wealth. We have to tackle the serious issues that are facing our people. And sometimes you say stuff like that and people get upset with you. I always say, as someone who studied economics, the market will always regulate itself. The rich will always be rich no matter what it is. But the poor cannot always afford to be poor with the high cost of living and inflation that is going on in St. Martin. And so we really need to tackle this issue seriously. And so with the same vigor that I had with the situation that went on with the Pelican, the same vigor that I have with bringing the breakfast program, the same vigor that I had at the time bringing the pension plan, the same vigor that I had in bringing all of the things that I brought in Parliament while I was there is the same vigor I'm going to have going in to deal once and for all with this cost of living on St. Martin, to have the GB regulated. I have to say this, that and it's not being mentioned often. I don't even think it has been mentioned. We have a situation in GB where our elderly have been benefiting from the plan that GB has, where they don't have to pay their electricity bill, or a huge percentage is taken off. That was something, Mr. Gibbs, that was brought by former MP in Parliament 2000 and 2014, Patrick Illich, that I supported. That a motion was placed together by his person, and I signed on to it, where our elderly would have gotten a reduction in the cost of electricity. And so these are the things that I have a track record and a proven record on. And if anybody knows me, whenever I say I'm going to do something, I go 100% towards it. And anybody who tries to obstruct that, um, you know, I am very boisterous, and I use my bully pulpit in Parliament. And so that is one of the things that I will address if given the opportunity by the people again, the cost of living in our country. One of the things that you get from folks is that we need a raise in the minimum wage. That is great, but we have to understand that raising the minimum wage doesn't fix the problem, because all businesses will do is raise the cost, and so you're going back to square one again. You have to deal with housing. You have to regulate housing in St. Martin. You have to regulate finally your surcharge of what GB is given the individuals. You have to regulate your food items. It cannot be the same craft cheese in one supermarket is different in another one. You have to regulate all of these factors that aid to our people having less and less purchasing power at the end of the day in their pocket. And that is something I would say to the people of St. Martin. If you know my track record, I say what I do and I mean what I say. And that is one of the things that I will tackle the first day on the job, given the opportunity to go back to Parliament.
Let me stick in this question before we go. Um, the legal the legal situation with you, is this in any way, or can this in any way affect you if you are elected? Can this affect you? What is the situation now with your legal thing in this community?
Well, I don't have any legal issue.
You know,
And I know it's very interesting to say, besides all what you read in the newspaper, my issue that I have is an issue where I took a stand against something, and I am bearing a cross for that. The statements that were made by, and I can't go so deep into it, Mr. Gibbs, Mr. Clark, sorry, about it, but the statements that were made by certain individuals against me are totally unfounded and false. And the prosecutor knows that.
so right here now we can put on record that former MP Romain Laville is saying that the accusations or the allegations are incorrect, they're false, untrue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that is a disservice that our print media that has never contacted me one day in 4 years. It's going on for 4 years now, to ask me my side of the story. They write these things and say, that I have a legal firearm, and I had
But as an MP,
ammunition.
you are allowed to carry
I was given a firearm, Mr. Clark, on the 17th of August 2012, 2 months after, over 2 months after, which was June 12th, that my colleague claimed, quote unquote, that I threatened to shoot him. And I find it's very weird and very interesting that if someone threatens to shoot somebody with a firearm, why would you issue them a firearm after? I have a firearm license that was granted to me. I was the first member of parliament in the country, St. Martin, both in St. Martin and in Curacao, to receive a firearm by the Minister of Justice in Curacao. Why did I receive the firearm, Mr. Gibbs? Because my life was threatened on several occasions and still is threatened today. I met with the head of the Secret First Service called me and wanted to have a meeting with me. And we met at Kangaroo Court, and he told me what was going on because they're listening to certain conversations. And he asked me, do I want to have a bodyguard? Do I want police protection and all of these things? And I said, no, this is St. Martin. We don't do stuff like that. This was before the situation happened with Helen Wheels, who was gunned down, the leader of the member of parliament. And so when I went over and I spoke to Minister Duncan, Justice Minister at the time, concerning my points of legislation, he asked me the same thing. And then I said to him, wait a minute, you guys know something I don't know. And so I told him, I said, look, listen, this is the situation. This is the conversation I had with the head of Secret Service. It was James Richardson at the time. And then is when the process started for me to get my firearm. I was contacted by DeWitt, who was chief of police at the time. I had a personal bodyguard, undercover individual who was with me 24/7. I had to check in with him every 2 hours. Wherever I go, I had to check in. When I reach home, I had to check in with him. Whomever I talk to, I had to let him know. So I have gone through some serious things in this country for taking a stand against individuals who felt that I should not have taken a stand against them. And so my legal issue, Mr. Gibbs, I am not worried about that. Because my teacher, the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, he said one time in a speech, he said, sometimes we have to wear a cross, not a cross that we wear in our ear or around our neck that says who we are, who we may not be, but a cross that represents rejection, being evil spoken of, being falsely accused, brought before courts of unjust charges. That is a cross that I bore. That is a cross that I've bearing for my people. I have sent in renewals to renew my firearm, and I have it documented. I'll show it to you after. I gave Lady Grace on Monday the copies of my firearm documentation so she could see for herself. And so I am not worried about that. it is those individuals, not against me, but I am lifting up the people that I stood up for on my shoulders. And that is the reason why I'm before the court of law. So whatever the judge decides, that is up to him. I leave it up to God. I was told in December of last year that I have to come before court on the 27th of January. I find it very interesting that it was 13 days before elections had to be on February 9th that my court case was called. All of a sudden, coming down to it, I got a phone call from my lawyer and said that they're moving up the case. And I found it strange too because at that same time, election was postponed. On May 11th, my case should have been called. We had witnesses that we wanted to hear. The prosecutor showed up one time. He never showed up for the rest to hear the witnesses or to ask them any questions. We found it was strange too as well. On the day of my court case, my lawyer wasn't well the week. The other acting lawyer was there. And so we asked to postpone it for at least a week so that my lawyer could come back and we can continue and have the case started. The prosecutor wanted it to continue until end of August because September is election. And so I am not worried about Mr. Gibbs at all. I think the people know better. I think the people know who I am. They know what I stand for. They know the sacrifice that I have done for them. And I will continue to do that for the people of St. Martin.
Now, Mr. Laville, I hope that I can have you on this program again sometime soon. We can talk about ship jumping. We could talk about other legislations and so on. So I want to thank you though for taking time out to your busy schedule and being on the program with me today. We will schedule another discussion for sometime soon. And so we will talk again, if that's okay with you.
That's okay. I just want to say to the people of St. Martin that the time has come. Stand with us. Fight for something. I am on the U.S. party, a party that I'm very comfortable with, people that I appreciate and I love. And so, coming this election, we ask you for your support to do the things that were said today and many more for you.
Okay.